Hey everybody, this is my 20-gallon open-topped office tank, and tonight we're going to do a before and after video. I'm going to get in there and do a little bit of work. We're going to do a water change. I'm going to change the lighting, but we'll talk about that in a minute. And I'm going to finish up my medication process. I've been treating the tank with API General Cure. I've got a Bolivian ram in here that looked really skinny and just didn't seem like it was doing well when I first got it. So I ran 2 cycles of the API General Cure, and that's why we've got the airstone just sort of draped in there at the moment. That's not a permanent fixture to the tank. That's just there while I was medicating. And to be honest with you, I don't know whether the meds have had their desired effect or not. I'm not seeing any stringy poop. I'm not seeing the fish get any skinnier. I'm not seeing the colors fade, but I'm also not seeing a vigorous growth or anything on the fish either. So I'm not really sure whether it had an impact or not. It's kind of hard to tell at this point, but I've run 2 cycles through and I figure that's either going to do it or it's not. If it's a medication that's going to treat whatever was going on with this fish, then that should have treated it. It's not something that I have to keep treating for days and days and days on end. If it's going to work, it's going to work. If it's not, it won't. So I'm going to take the airstone out of the tank. We're going to do the water change, get the water tops back off and all that. And we'll just keep an eye on the ram for a little while to see what's going on. Make sure he stays good and healthy. The other thing I will do is I will get in there and I will clean the surface of the water off to some degree. I'll get a little scoop or something in there and I'll skim some of those dead flowers that are floating all over the surface. I actually do kind of like the look of having those floating there. So let me pull my little stool out here for a second, my little step stool. Step up and look down for a minute. My flowering temple plant, my swamp weed, if you want to call it that. That is one of the common names for it. Most of these main flowers in this main stalk look like they've already been and gone, and I'm being left with a lot of seed pods, which is interesting. But it's not done completely. I still am getting new growth where I cut the top. This is where I removed the whole top section. That's now down in my waterfall tank in the basement. But you can see all this new growth, and the new growth is definitely generating flowers on it. Over here we've got some flowers developing, so we are still going to get more flowering. I don't know anything about this plant's life cycle. I've never bothered to even look it up. I'm just kind of watching it happen. So it'll be interesting to see what happens from here on out. So nothing really getting done with the plant. I just wanted to have a look at it. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to change the light. It is simply a floodlight, an LED floodlight that shines straight downwards. And what we are replacing it with is just a softer color temperature of the same light. It is one of these Cree. There's the magic that you got to look for right there, that 90 plus CRI. This is a very, very high quality light. It looks absolutely beautiful. And when we changed it before, I put the 5000K on it, was because that's what I had. And I kind of liked the 5000K, and I still do. But I'm also in here late at night, and having that 5000K light, which basically as high as that floodlight is hanging, I mean, you can see we're up near the ceiling. That pretty much lights up the room at night with that very bright 5000K, blue light. And it just makes it hard for me to wind down at night. So I'm going to change it over to a 3000K. Still going to be that very high quality full spectrum light. So we're still going to get all the beautiful color rendering of everything that's going on in the tank. But I would imagine the softer color is going to pick out some of the reds and the earth tones that we've got in this tank are going to really come to life. So all my Raspora hets in there, and then the neons, and even a lot of those guppies that have a fair amount of reds and yellows in them. I think all of them are going to look great underneath of this new 3000K light. So let me get on with it. We're going to call this your before, and this is your after. So I actually wound up doing a little more work in the tank than I anticipated when I got in there. I noticed as I was beginning to fill the water back in, on the far right hand side, the water was just completely still. There was no circulation whatsoever from the filter. Now, I usually use filters that are oversized for their tank. These little Tetra Whisper filters don't really give you a gallons per hour rating, but they do give you a recommended tank size. And this one, well, let me look at it for a minute. This one says it's up to a 30. So this is actually slightly oversized for this 20-gallon tank. Ideally, I would like one for the 40. I usually try to double it. In this case, even doubling it, you've got so much vegetation in the way, disrupting the water flow. And because we're going lengthwise down the end of the tank, even the 40 doesn't necessarily do the trick. You wind up having way too much circulation and too vigorous a water flow down at this end, and it still really diffuses so much that it doesn't necessarily translate to good circulation throughout the tank. So maybe having a little air stone down at this end of the tank, or a very small power head. I'm not even sure how I would get a power head small enough to move these tiny amounts of water. Maybe one of those little aquarium pumps, or one of those little fountain pumps that moves 90 gallons an hour or something like that, which may sound like a lot, but really is not, believe me. So what I wound up doing was changing the filter pad out. Of course, that, got the flow moving a little more, but I also got in there and I cleared out as much of the Java windelov babies, the offsprings that grow out here on the tips of the fronds. I pulled as much of them out as I could, and I got quite a bit of them. So as always, I'll put my email down below, and I do have Java fern. I've got Java windelov. This is what I just pulled out of the tank tonight. That's all Java windelov. And by windelov, I mean it's the stuff that's got that real sort of fingery tips to the end. You can see over there it sort of looks like normal Java fern, and then as it gets out to the tip, you can see how it sort of splays out into those fingered ends. So that's the Java windelov. And I just showed you a small bucket full of it. I've already got some downstairs as it is. So that'll all go into my grow out tank. And as usual, I will have plenty of that available for sale. So again, I'll put my email down below if you're interested in that. I also got in and attempted to just simply remove some of this Java fern. I got in here and I didn't use scissors or anything. I tried just breaking some of it apart with my hands. That's not a big deal. You can just sort of break a rhizome off, or break a piece of a rhizome off, and sort of tease it out. And you can sort of thin ferns out like that. The problem is everything is all grown together. These roots from this temple plant have grown in through the Java fern. The Java fern's roots have grown in through the temple plant. This Java fern is pretty much attached to that artificial cave back there. In fact, you can see a lot of those fronds are coming out of the windows of the cave. So that's all through there. And even just tugging on that to try to break the pieces of fern off, everything was just getting disturbed. My poor little clown pleco that was in there came out. It was so washed out and white, I scratched my head for a minute wondering if I'd bought an albino by accident. But I think it was just stressed and completely washed out with color. I was being a little forceful in there. I kind of honestly forgot he was in there. So his cave got all turned upside down, and it went down there under that cave. I don't know if it's still in there, or that's where it's going to make its new home or not. But that cave's not much of a cave anymore. It really is just full of roots. All of these roots have grown down into the substrate, and then they've grown back up. And it's like a bunch of little trees sticking up off the bottom. It's really kind of cool looking. I've never had a tank do that before. I've never had this effect before, where I've actually had the roots growing back up into the water out of the substrate. So it's like I have a little spindly forest on the bottom, and it is all because of this swamp weed. I love calling it swamp weed. That is temple plant, or hygrophila, I believe it is the proper name for it. And it looks fantastic. I've got some of this down in my open top waterfall tank downstairs, and I'm hoping we can even get more vigorous growth than this. I'll actually trim that one so it branches out and gets bushier, and of course we've got room to grow down there. We can get it really tall and looking really cool. So that'll be interesting to see if that pans out. So found 2 dead Raspora hets in the tank while I was cleaning it out. That was kind of a surprise. Well, it wasn't too much of a surprise. I get some of them that get so egg bound, they just for some reason never lay their eggs or whatever, and they just eventually will die, I'm assuming because of being just so egg bound. They're so fat when they die, and it's not like bloat. It's something completely different. I've seen it before in the Raspora hets. So it's not that unusual, but I did not notice that I had 2 that were swimming around funny. I did just remove one out of this tank not long ago for that very reason. It was swimming all upside down and it was all bloated and everything. So in the beginning part of this video, you may have noticed one of them was right in front of this piece of wood. I'd seen it while I was shooting, but I wasn't sure what I was looking at because I was looking at it in the video monitor rather than the actual, with my eyes into the tank. And so, of course, when I started getting in there and cleaning, I immediately realized it was a dead Raspora. But when I got into the fern and started really sorting that out and separating that out and, rustling that around, apparently there was a dead body of a little Raspora in there as well. And that one had been dead long enough that it actually had snails all over it, and the snails had been feeding on it. So, there you go. That would have been in there for a little while. As far as the light goes, I like it. I don't know if you've noticed a big difference or not, but being here in the room with it, it is definitely a much softer light. It is definitely going to make, winding down in the evening a little more relaxing and enjoyable. A lot of times what I'll do is just turn this tank off earlier in the evening so that I'm not sitting here being blinded by that, appearance of having the middle of the day in my office when it's 10 o'clock at night or something. So this will still make it, a lot lighter than 10 o'clock at night would be if I were outside, of course. But that softer light with the more red spectrum in there and less of that blue definitely makes winding down at the end of the day easier. So there you go. This was a little more lengthy than I expected it to be, but as I said, I got in there and did a little more work than I expected to do. So there you go. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget, this one is my office tank. Look forward to some more updates coming up real soon. I did some work in the other upstairs tanks, so those videos will be coming up soon. Thanks again. See you in the next one.